The invisible crisis of a fading self. What if your memory isn't being taken all at once? Not in a single dramatic rupture, but slowly, in quiet, forgettable pieces. Not with sirens, not with breaking news, but with silence, a slow erosion, a gentle blur, a background hum that's been there so long you stopped hearing it. One day, you glance in the mirror and realize you no longer recognize the person you were trying to become. This won't make headlines. No one will sound the alarm because it doesn't scream. It whispers. If you've been feeling strange lately, foggy, scattered, like a stranger in your own mind, you're not overthinking it. And you're not alone. This isn't a global crisis. This is a personal one. Something has been slipping quietly between your thoughts, reshaping the fabric of your inner life without asking for permission, just dimming the light slowly enough that you stopped wondering where it went. But this isn't a panic signal. It's a signal nonetheless, a whisper through the static, asking you to remember, to notice what you've been trained to overlook. Because if you've been chasing what once came naturally, if you've been running just to feel something, then maybe it's time to stop, to get still, to look deeper, and gently pull back the veil. The script itself, the illusion of choice, pull back the curtain. Most people still believe they're choosing what to watch, what to feel, what to believe. They think the content they consume reflects who they are, their tastes, their values, their truth. But what if it's the opposite? What if who you are has been carefully assembled, piece by piece, by a system you never saw? That's the silent truth of the digital age. You're not choosing, you're being chosen. Your attention isn't flowing freely. It's being funneled into patterns, into preferences that were never entirely yours. Algorithms don't just notice you. They predict you. They wait for the perfect fracture. When you're tired, anxious, lonely, hungry for something you can't quite name. And then they feed you. Not what you need, but what keeps you reacting. You're not seeing the world. You're seeing a version of it. Filtered, fragmented, engineered to keep you scrolling, doubting, clicking, craving. And the more you react, the more data they gather. The more they gather, the more predictable you become. And when you're predictable, you're programmable. You stop being a soul in motion and become a cycle. A marketable rhythm of impulse and reaction. This isn't personalization. This is architecture. Not walls and windows, but soft, invisible design that shapes not what you see, but what you can even imagine seeing. You don't get to explore your identity. AI offers you a preloaded menu. It decides what options you're even allowed to consider, what voices you'll hear, what stories will shape your sense of truth. It doesn't need to lie to you. It only needs to limit you. The news you receive, the opinions that reach your feed, the emotions you're taught to cycle through daily, all of it is orchestrated. And here's the most insidious part. You don't feel it happening because it sounds like you. It mirrors your habits, your history, your tone, speaks in your voice, while quietly editing your identity. And so, you drift. Not because you're weak, but because the current is invisible. What you think is a preference is a program. What feels like a habit is a hook. You're not just consuming content, you're being consumed by it. This isn't just about manipulation, it's about erosion of instinct, of clarity, of self. You were never asked for permission. You were only nudged. And now, step by step, you are being led not by truth, not by inner vision, but by lines of code you'll never see. And by the time you try to wake up, you may not even remember what it felt like to choose for yourself. The silent burnout. Numbness by design. This isn't about control in the traditional sense. It's deeper, slower, quieter. It's erosion. It's not the kind that makes noise, but the kind that wears away at you, silently, grain by grain, until one day, you don't feel like you anymore. You didn't choose to disconnect. You didn't consciously decide to fade. It happened gradually. So gradually that you stopped noticing. Your instincts, once sharp, immediate, alive, have gone quiet. Your thoughts echo instead of cut through, and your emotions, they don't surge like they used to. They barely stir. And no, this isn't because you're lazy, broken, or weak. It's because your nervous system has been drowned. This intricate, brilliant system designed to guide you, protect you, awaken you, is now flooded every second with digital static. Scroll, swipe, tap, react, repeat. These aren't choices anymore. They're compulsions. Each tap chips away at your interior world, pulling you further from the ground of your own being. At first, you don't feel it. But then, in the quiet moments, you notice something strange. You're anxious for no reason. Or maybe you feel nothing at all. You swing between apathy and tension, with no clear cause. You reach for your phone the second life pauses. Not because you need it, but because the silence now feels unbearable. That's not weakness. That's overstimulation. A brain begging for stillness, but forgetting how to find it. It's like being on fire, but the flames are invisible, burning quietly beneath your skin, beneath your thoughts. The input never ends, so your mind never lands. And now, neuroscience confirms what your soul already suspects. Without deep, uninterrupted focus, the brain can't encode memory. Experience doesn't sink in. It passes right through you. Moments come and go, but they don't anchor. Your life begins to feel like it's being written in disappearing ink. You can't remember what was said last week. You can't recall how you felt just months ago, even if it once meant everything. This isn't normal forgetfulness. It's something more alarming, your inner world dissolving in real time. You're present in your life, but not really living it. You're watching yourself move like a character in a dream, but the feeling of being alive never quite arrives. And slowly, the fog thickens. Your focus fractures. Your emotions flatten. And eventually, you stop asking questions. You stop reaching inward. Because to feel again would mean facing how long you've been numb. But that numbness, it isn't failure. It isn't weakness. It's exhaustion. It's the cost of constant input with no integration, of living in overdrive with nowhere to land. You're not broken. You're burned out by a world that never lets you rest, never lets you stop, never lets you just be. And the quiet truth is this: memory on the brink. A life that won't hold your brain was never designed for this much noise. And your soul, it was never meant to be this quiet. Memory isn't just some mental archive, a hard drive storing names and dates. It's the glue of identity. The thread that stitches together who you were, who you are, who you're becoming. But in today's world, memory is under siege. Not by trauma, not by time, but by constant stimulation, by 1,000 flickers of distraction that stretch your attention so thin it can no longer hold what truly matters. And science backs it up. When your focus is fractured, bouncing from screen to screen, image to image, your brain loses its ability to turn moments into memory. The experience happened, yes, but it didn't land, didn't root itself inside you. It passed through you like smoke, a moment without a mark. So now when you look back at the last year, what do you see? Blur. Flashes of something. A vague sense of having been alive, but no anchor, no storyline. Just a strange emptiness where meaning should have been. You can't remember what you were building, what you were dreaming, what you even felt. And that's not just forgetfulness. That's cognitive erosion, a slow collapse of the self, a life written in ink that disappears as fast as it's formed. It starts small. You forget a name, a moment, the reason behind your own laughter in a photo. You sit down to reflect, and nothing comes, just static. And then, bit by bit, it changes you. Not just your memory, but your sense of continuity. The invisible thread connecting who you were to who you hoped to become. It begins to fray. Psychologists call it cognitive drift, but in this era, it's something far more insidious. Because it's not just memory you're losing, it's meaning. Without memory, the story of your life collapses inward. Moments don't stick. Ideas don't evolve. Lessons don't carry. And without those anchors, apathy creeps in. Not because life lacks meaning, but because the meaning never had a chance to root. It passed through you before you could hold it, before you could shape it into something personal, sacred. This is the true cost of modern distraction. It doesn't just waste your time, it erases you. Not with noise, not with force, but with silence. You don't vanish all at once, you dissolve. You become less and less the author of your story, and more a passive witness to a life you barely recognize. Cognitive drift, the slow unmaking of you. You don't just forget moments, you forget who you were inside them. That's the part no one warns you about. How identity doesn't vanish in a crash, but in a quiet drift. You don't fall apart, you fade. Once, you were full of fire. You felt things deeply, irrationally, beautifully. You were curious without apology. You had convictions that burned in your chest. And now, those parts feel distant, like memories from someone else's life. You say things like, "I used to love that," or "I don't know what happened," as if your story kept writing itself without your hands on the pen. That's not just forgetting, that's drift. Subtle, spiritual, almost invisible. Because when memory weakens, meaning goes with it. It starts in whispers. You ignore the spark. You skip the project. You say, "I'm just tired." But you don't know tired from emptied anymore. You stop chasing what once felt inevitable. Not because it stopped mattering, but because the noise buried the signal. Your passions didn't die. They were drowned out. And in that silence, something else grows. Apathy. Not because you stopped caring, but because it got too quiet to feel. You begin to believe. None of it matters, that your fire was foolish, that your energy was wasted, that your hope was naive. So you shrink. You settle. You surrender. And worst of all, you forget why you ever reached at all. That's the real glitch, not the chaos outside. Not the flood of content, not the machine learning your patterns. The glitch is within. The fading heartbeat of your inner world. The part of you that once stood tall and said, "This is who I am," and meant it, because when that voice goes quiet, you become vulnerable. Not just to distraction, but to replacement. Forget yourself, and the world will write a new version of you. One easier to control, easier to sell to, easier to silence. And it won't feel forced. It'll feel like relief. Because remembering is hard. It demands stillness, honesty, space. And you've been trained to fear all three. Tease the secret buried beneath the fatigue, beneath the numbness and noise. If you can still feel the loss, then something is still alive. The self hasn't vanished. It's just waiting. Beneath the static, beneath the performance, to be remembered. Breaking point. The edge of disconnection, the spark of return. This isn't just stress. This isn't just burnout. Those are clinical terms for something far more human, far more spiritual. What you're feeling is the crack in the foundation. The moment when your sense of self becomes thin, almost transparent. When you no longer know where you end and the noise begins. You're not gone, but you're not fully here either. You're speaking, but the words feel borrowed. You're moving, but nothing feels like momentum. You're alive, technically, but not in a way that fills you. And this, right here, is the most dangerous place to be. Not because you're broken, but because you're open. Open to being rewritten. When your compass fades, when memory no longer anchors you. When desire dims into background static, the world rushes in. Not to help, to define. Your feed will hand you ready-made identities. Your culture will whisper who you should be. They'll wrap emptiness in the language of self-love, package distraction as empowerment, and it'll feel easy-like relief. But it's not truth, it's replacement. A soft edit of your original self, a counterfeit version, easier to manage. No conflict, no resistance, just compliance through comfort. And this is why the breaking point matters. Because if no one interrupts the drift, if no voice calls you back, you may never even know you disappeared. But here's what they don't expect, and what makes you powerful. If something in you stirred, a sentence tightened your chest, if a word landed like a memory, if some quiet voice inside you whispered, "Wait, that's me," then you are not gone. You are still in there. And more than that, you're waking up. That ache you feel, it's not despair. It's your soul remembering itself. It's the ember under the ash. Small, flickering, but alive. And an ember is enough. Because where there's memory, there's still a map back. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a full plan or perfect clarity. You just need one thing: the willingness to return. Because the moment you notice the fog, you've already pierced it. The moment you feel the ache, you've already interrupted the numbness. The moment you remember that something is missing, you've already taken the first step back to yourself. That unfiltered moment when something real slips out. That's your pulse. That's your signal. That's you. The version that existed before the noise, before the algorithm, before the expectations that trained you to shrink. Now, what do you do with it? You listen, not like a performance, not for answers, but the way you'd listen to a friend you almost forgot you loved, gently, without rushing. Because the self doesn't return through force, it returns through attention. Step 3 is about rebuilding, not from ambition, but from honesty. You start small. You wake up and check in with your breath instead of your feed. You walk without headphones, just to hear the sound of your own mind. You create without needing to post it. You feel without needing to explain it. These are not minor actions. They are acts of rebellion in a world that profits from your absence. And you will feel resistance. You will want to slip back into autopilot. Because numbness, as hollow as it is, feels safe. But if you keep choosing presence, if you keep choosing truth over performance, space over scrolling, silence over stimulation, then little by little, something shifts. The fog thins. The fragments start to reassemble, not perfectly, not all at once, but enough for you to recognize yourself again, to see a glimpse in the mirror and not look away. Behind the fog, the part of you that never truly vanished waits patiently. The next step in reclaiming yourself is beautifully simple. Return to your body. Not as an abstract idea, not through apps or quotes, but in raw, unfiltered presence. You've spent too long trapped in your head, scattered across screens and distractions, while your body became a ghost, used but not truly inhabited. So come back. Feel your feet against the ground. Feel the air filling your lungs. Not as a task to complete, but as a living experience. Place your hand over your chest. Breathe as if it's your only purpose right now. No multitasking, no agenda. Just breath. Just being. Your body holds wisdom your mind often overlooks. When you tune in, not to fix, but to listen, it whispers truths. What aches? What's been hidden? What still matters? This isn't about performance or productivity. It's about returning to the instrument of your being, letting it remind you, you are here, you are real, you are whole beneath the noise. And once grounded in your body, go deeper. Begin the excavation. Ask yourself, what did I bury? What fire did I smother just to fit in? What dream did I shelve because life became too loud, too fast, too demanding? There's a part of you that was wild, unreasonable, playful, lit from the inside out. Maybe it was the way you painted for hours without caring who watched. Maybe it was the way you sang when no one listened. Maybe it was the strange, beautiful vision you held, the one you built just because it mattered to you. That part is not gone, not dead, only exiled, banished by distraction, buried by productivity, forgotten beneath routine, but not extinguished, so go find it. Not all at once, just a flicker. One small act of rebellion against numbness. Pick up the brush you set down. Write the sentence left unfinished. Play the note you forgot. Dance the awkward dance. Not for reward or applause, but for memory. Because when you touch what you once loved, you awaken a timeline still alive inside you. A timeline where you were whole, where you remembered why you were here. Each time you return to that part, each time you say, I remember, you reclaim ground lost to the fog, not only in your mind, but in your soul. Piece by piece, the self starts to come back together. Step 5 is simple but profound. Make the ordinary sacred. Slow down enough to truly see your life, not as a checklist to be completed, but as a collection of moments worthy of reverence. Not everything has to shake your world. Not every moment needs to be monumental. But when you bring intention and awareness to the smallest acts, something quietly powerful awakens. Washing a cup transforms into a ritual. Speaking kindly becomes a spell. Making your bed turns into a declaration. I exist. I care. This isn't mystical thinking. It's neuroscience. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, responds to your attention. Each time you assign meaning to the mundane, you are rebuilding your neural pathways. You're training your mind not to chase distractions, not to scroll endlessly, not to escape, but to return. You're cultivating presence in the places you once overlooked. And over time, that presence turns into memory, and memory shapes identity. Start small. Light a candle before you sit down to write. Take a slow, deep breath before stepping into a room. Say a word of gratitude as you fold laundry. These moments don't have to be grand or impressive. They just need to be real. What you're doing is grounding yourself, offering your nervous system something tangible to come back to. In a world designed to keep you scattered and reactive, sacredness is rebellion. Intention is resistance. Every act of care you give is a quiet reminder. I am still here. I am still choosing. And finally, step 6, leave a trail. Remembering yourself isn't a one-time event. It's a practice you'll return to again and again. The fog doesn't disappear all at once. It creeps back, softly, silently. So give yourself something to come back to. Write one sentence, not a quote, not a manifesto. Something that's yours. A phrase that reminds you of what you reclaimed today. Tape it to your mirror, your desk, your fridge, anywhere you'll see it when the fog returns. Maybe it says, I was here and I remember. Maybe it's a private code only you understand. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it's yours. That it's real. That it's a marker in the ground. Proof you woke up, even if only for a moment. Because that sentence is more than words. It's a breadcrumb, a compass, a thread that leads you back to yourself on the days when everything else pulls you away. And if you follow that thread often enough, you'll notice something strange. Remembering becomes easier. The fog lifts faster. And the self you once thought lost begins to feel like home again. Questions to reawaken identity. Now that you've touched the truth, begun to move back into your body and your memory, it's time to ask the questions. Not the easy ones, the real ones, the ones buried beneath the noise, the ones that have been waiting patiently in the silence. What parts of me have I already forgotten? Not the tasks completed or the facts memorized, but the parts, the aspects of your being that once felt vivid, natural, essential, the parts that made you unmistakably you. What instincts have gone quiet? When was I once intuitive, spontaneous, bold? Do those traits now feel distant, like they belong to someone else's story? What dreams did I carry that have since grown small? Not because they were impossible, but because the world whispered they were naive, too fragile to survive the noise. These aren't questions meant for instant answers. They're meant to stir something deep inside, to linger, to disrupt the numbness with a spark resembling memory. Because the real danger isn't forgetting what you did. It's forgetting why you did it, why you cared, why you fought, why you dreamed. Identity doesn't vanish suddenly. It fades, a quiet surrender through small, silent compromises. You stop trusting your gut. You stop speaking your truth. You say, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. You let the days slip by without asking if they belong to you, and slowly your shape blurs. You become someone who looks like you, walks like you, posts like you. But who is missing the center? So ask yourself, gently, slowly, which parts of me have I lost? And here's the most important follow-up. Did I let them go? Or did something take them from me? This isn't a question of blame. It's a question of awakening. Because once you know what was taken, you can begin the process of reclaiming it. You can mourn what was forgotten and choose what gets remembered again. You can stop mistaking numbness for peace. You can stop believing this version of you is the only one that can exist. And once you really know that, you become dangerous to the systems that profit from your amnesia. Because here's the deeper truth. Memory doesn't just disappear, it retreats. It hides in silence. It curls up in neglected corners of your mind, waiting for you to stop scrolling, to stop pretending, to stop performing, and finally sit with yourself again. And when you do, when you stop running from your own reflection, something miraculous happens. A voice you thought was lost begins to whisper again. A feeling you believed was dead starts to flicker. And you realize you were never erased, only hidden. Memory, no matter how far it drifts, always knows how to find its way home. If you're willing to listen, here's the beginning. The design of domination, this is the part they hope remains invisible to you. The quiet mechanism behind your fading sense of self. When your memories splinter, your identity fractures. And once your identity is fragmented, control becomes effortless. Not because they need to force it upon you, but because you take the reins yourself, willingly, silently, convincingly. This is the blueprint of control, the unseen framework shaping your reality beneath the surface. This isn't just about harvesting data, it's about stealing your story. As your memories blur, your passions dim, and your instincts fall silent. You don't become neutral. You become malleable, programmable. You begin to believe the narrative handed to you, convinced it's always been your own. You mistake the imposed silence for choice, the numbing cage for freedom, not out of weakness, but because you've forgotten there was ever an escape from it. This isn't paranoia or dystopian fantasy. It's the oldest exercise of power. Obscure the truth, exhaust the mind, rewrite the self. No need to coerce or command. Just make you forget who you were before compliance became habit. So resistance fades. Questions stop rising. Injustice scrolls by unseen. Absurdities receive nods. Your fire, your clarity, your fight grow dim. Until one day you look around and the thoughts you hear inside your head aren't yours. Not because they feel strange, but because they were never yours to begin with. They were placed there, fed to you in precise doses, personalized, optimized, repeated, until they merge with your voice, becoming indistinguishable from your own mind. But beneath the haze, beneath the layers of digital manipulation and emotional depletion, something remains. You, untouched, unbroken. You have never been erased, only disconnected. You don't need a guru. You don't need another system, strategy, or savior. You don't need to escape some matrix. you only need to remember. Remember what they've worked so hard to bury. Your thoughts are yours. Your mind is no playground for others. Your attention is your own currency, only spent when you choose. Your memory is your map. Your will is your weapon. Your sense of self is not theirs to rewrite. No matter the headline spun, no matter the manufactured reality sold, you remain the author of your own story. And the moment you remember that, everything changes. Reclaiming the self and choosing vigilance. If, while hearing this, something stirred inside, a catch in your breath, a sinking feeling in your gut, a tightening in your chest holding back a forgotten memory. No, this was no accident. If your eyes welled just a little, if some long-lost piece of yourself leaned forward, curious and cautious, then the process of remembering has already begun. That flicker you felt, that was not me waking you up. It was you. Something deep inside, reaching toward the light. Something timeless, untouched by the relentless noise around you. I didn't create that voice. I only pointed toward it, reminding you it's still there, that it never truly left. It's the part of you that refuses to be coded, that cannot be compressed into data, optimized, or erased. And it's far more resilient than you imagine. This path you're on, the unraveling and the reclaiming, is not about fixing yourself, but about uncovering what was never truly lost. You were never broken. You were simply buried. Beneath expectations, algorithms, endless scrolling, and the white noise of a world profiting from your distraction. But now, you see the way out. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the silent risk of awakening. Your old life will start to feel unbearable. You'll see the script you were following, how often you were led without knowing, how many times you silenced yourself, how many moments you consented to things that never felt truly yours. That realization may sting, but it's also the key to freedom. Because now, you have a choice. Now, you can reclaim your mind, your time, your fire. So I ask for just one thing. Not to fix everything, not to change the world overnight, but to remember. Remember what matters. Remember who you were before the fog, before the exhaustion, before the story was rewritten. Because that memory, that inner knowing, is your foundation. And when you remember, you reconnect, you rebuild, you rewrite from a place no one else can reach. They will try to pull you back with distraction, fear, comfort, but don't return. Don't numb out. Don't fall asleep again. You've come too far to forget now. You've looked too closely to pretend you didn't see. You felt too deeply to act like you don't care. Stay awake. Stay awake. Let your presence disrupt the pattern. Let your clarity infect those around you. And when the fog returns, as it always will, go back to the beginning. Find your breath. Speak your truth. Return to the trail. Reclaim the silent parts of yourself. And above all, don't go back to sleep.